What is going, Nivy? We back at it again. Another video, you know what I'm saying? For my boy Chuck, man, OG, man. OG power scaler, bro. You know, we got Chuck, we got Clyde, and we got Swag. We had another one, but we don't talk about that one no more. We don't talk about him no more. You feel me? But yeah. We got Saiyans versus Viltrumites. Who would actually win? And bro, oh my god, that Viltrumite game, that Viltrumite fighting game, bro. Oh my god, I can't wait to play it, bro. I can't wait to play it, bro, man. Shout out to Xbox, man. W Showcase. I can't wait to play it. That's crazy, man. Sony showed off whatchamacallit, Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls. Xbox showed off Invincible. W teams. Arx is doing Marvel, and we got the KI team doing Invincible. That's tough. That's really tough, bro. Because Killer Instinct was W, so I ain't gonna cap. Me and my friend, we played that shit for a little grip. I ain't gonna lie to you, bro. I think I'm the one that showed him that game, low key. What's the name? What's the name? That skeleton dude. That's his main. That's his main. You feel me? Dang, what the fuck that thing? No, what was his name? But anyway, yeah, him. But yeah, Saiyans versus Viltrumites. I'm pretty sure he's probably talking about, you know, base Saiyans. I'm pretty sure he's not talking about Goku and Vegeta type shit. Low key, it's a toss up. It's a toss up. The base Saiyans, because I mean, like you got the elites. You know what I'm saying? You got niggas like Nappa. You feel me? That's ignorant. You know, niggas to do this. You know what I'm saying? And shit turned to waste, you know? So, yeah, but anyway, hit the video up with a like, man. Comment down below and subscribe. Roll to 3K. Not subscribe. Fight on Patreon, Twitch, and the gaming channel. Link in the description down below. You feel me? Subscribe to Chuck. Give her 300,000 type beat. But anyway, without further ado, let me loud this up. Let me loud this shit up. That was streaming. Yeah, there we go. And let's dive on in. So I gotta hit this again. All right, it should be on the screen now. I go.
Fiction come as close. When it comes to super fascism and imperial rule,
damn,
few things in fiction come as close as the levels of subjugation showcased by the Saiyans from Akira Toriyama's masterpiece.
They also got the grades in their back pocket.
From Image Comics' hit series, Invincible.
Tough.
Both are one of the most dominant life forms in their respective universes and gained an immense reputation throughout the cosmos for their love for battle and brutality. But what if these two empires...
No, facts. I feel like the only thing, you know what, that would just take the Viltrumites at least to that next level is like if they could do something projectile wise, like key control or some shit like that. You know, they don't have heat vision, they don't have nothing to zone with. You feel me? All they got is these hands, and that's it. You feel? That's all them niggas have, bro. They don't have nothing else, bro. You know, unless like a Viltrumite can evolve. You know what I'm saying? To like do something. I mean, they have smart atoms, you know, but yeah, that's like the only thing I feel like that holds them back. That's like their next evolution. I feel like then they really be like Saiyans for real.
That their primes faced off against each other.
Saiyans
dominate the other. Would it be the Space Monkeys or the Mustache Conquerors? First and foremost, I've been seeing this topic quite regularly, especially because of a popular tweet asking their community if 50 Saiyans could beat 50
Saiyans.
People usually give their answer alongside the manga panels of Master Roshi and Piccolo blowing the moon away, or King Vegeta casually waving away several planets in the anime, who even Prince Vegeta has surpassed as a child. Yep, I'll admit, the Saiyans have insane firepower, which gives them an insane advantage in this battle. But I feel that some people that cover or debate this topic don't really understand the intricacies of how the Invincible universe scales, or they may not know about the multipliers or other combat elements that prove that, hey, the Viltrumites might actually have a chance in this match.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. It's a toss-up.
It's not as one-sided as it might seem.
Yeah, it's a toss-up.
Will likely be going
over that demon.
Scenarios depending on the Viltrumites population.
That demon right there, bro.
And how stacked the Saiyan army really is if we accept non-canon or canon post-Z material. Either way, there will be spoilers ahead. So let's begin with the Saiyans, which are pretty straightforward. With power levels of 180 and within the 400s, like at the very start of Dragon Ball Z, characters like Master Roshi, Piccolo, and Goku can not only blast apart the moon, but straight up vaporize it, and depending on the time frame and how far away the debris flew, This feat casually surpasses moon levels and likely reaches those planetary plus to large planetary levels, which the average Saiyan would scale from and above, especially if we use the anime scaling. One big misconception in the community, however, is that people think that the average Saiyan compares to or even surpasses Raditz' threshold of power, which is not quite true.
No.
Yes, the Daizenshu and other older material references that Raditz was born a low-class warrior, and that his combat ability wasn't impressive compared to the rest, especially due to him having, still having that dreaded tail weakness. But newer material seems to infer the exact opposite. There are 2 interviews with Akira Toriyama entailing that Raditz had been in missions alongside Nappa and Elite, which is stated in the Daizenshu, even before Vegeta had joined the squadron, meaning that Raditz could compete and survive in environments where an average Saiyan would clearly not survive in. And keep in mind, he is within Elite, so he can hold his own somewhat.
Somewhat, you feel me?
Toriyama even goes as far as saying that Nappa and Raditz had equal status. This statement is a bit strange, as these two are clearly not the same in terms of power or status.
No, facts. This nigga, there was dog shit in this nigga, bro. It was trash talking this nigga, bro. Nappa had no respect for Raditz.
Probably equals in general reliability or in the pecking order, being that both are below Vegeta's authority. Narratively speaking, even without those newer revelations, Raditz has to be above a low class or an average Saiyan, because only those that remain with a low power level for long either become engineers or are sent to infiltrate low-level planets, which clearly was not the fate for Raditz. The Broly movie also shows Raditz alongside Vegeta, so he was clearly in the trenches with them for most of his life, unless you think that Vegeta would just let any low-level random in his planet-conquering life.
Them boys been YNs since this age, bro. Let that sink in. They've been YNs, bro. Crazy.
Hobbies, and I really don't think he would. I'm not saying that Raditz was as effective as Nappa or Vegeta during their campaigns, and he may as well have gotten a hard carry in most of them, but the point is, he is clearly not a scrub, and is likely more of a mid-tier to a low-tier elite Saiyan. That is, if you consider Nappa like a mid-tier elite, because I would argue that Vegeta is not really a high-tier elite, and is more of an anomaly, or a hyper-elite like Z Broly, given that true elites were at the range of about 10,000, which classic DBZ Bardock and King Vegeta were associated with, and Vegeta once again has surpassed that tier even as a kid. What this means is that the average Saiyan is at least above the 400s region, but still below the 900s to 1500s areas without energy attacks, because obviously that multiplies your power, right? An elite Saiyan would be around the ranges where Nappa tiers are at, which is about 4,000, and average Saiyans would reach a threshold around that of a base elite Saiyan with the Great Transformation, given that it multiplies their attack power, durability, and speed by 10 times, although they do lose some agility. Now, if we're including material outside of the original DBZ run, and we have, say Dragon Ball Super Bardock with his limit surpassed, and Turles, these two would scale higher than Prince Vegeta as well, with Goku's father reaching the elite ranks within the Frieza Force, while Turles, prior to eating the Fruit of the Tree of Might, is at least 19,000, but is likely even stronger in approximating 29,000 to 30,000, given by him being able to dodge and outmaneuver and
which is crazy.
Goku momentarily. Additionally, Toyotaro states that Gas was stronger than Nappa in the Ginyu Force, likely being comparable to someone like Abo and Kato from the DBZ Special before their wish to become stronger. Abo and Kato, the brother duo, were in a similar tier to that of the Ginyu Force prior to Frieza's demise. So you could say that pre-wish Dragon Ball Super.
I remember this shit, bro. Oh my god, I remember this. When the fuck did I know I watched it on YouTube. I think I. Damn, no, I lied. It probably was an anime site back in the day. I don't know which one though. Was it Kiss Anime? It probably was Kiss Anime, but it could have been something else though. I can't remember. I don't think this whole thing was on YouTube though. That would be crazy. But yeah. I think they said during this, like I think it was on relative to these niggas, right? And then I guess since after Frieza died, then I think this time right here, it was on par with Frieza type shit, like in power.
Who pushed rusty versions of post-Buu Saga Goten and Trunks with their clones. But at the time when Bardock was around in Dragon Ball Z, Gas was likely within that Ginyu Force echelon of power. Otherwise, it wouldn't really make any sense that
and that's no joke.
Frieza's if he truly was as strong as Abo and Kato's peak, which would completely wash Frieza.
Yeah.
In which case, this would put Limits Unleashed Bardock in a range above 30,000, and 120,000 if you think that Gas was around Captain Ginyu's threshold. To keep it simple, average Saiyans are in the planetary plus to large planet ranges, while the elite Saiyans are within the large planet to small star ranges. And Prince Vegeta, Turles, and Dragon Ball Super Bardock would be in those small to normal star ranges in base and star plus to large star levels with their grade 8 transformations. While most of the Saiyan soldiers are low class according to Toriyama's interviews, there were only
Knock my
about
niggas off,
10
man.
that were middle class, and only 2, Vegeta and King Vegeta, were the true elites.
You
But
feel
as I
me?
said, Nappa would likely be like a low or mid-tier elite going by the Daizenshu, or maybe what Toriyama considers to be a middle class. And he even considers Bardock an upper low class, which mostly applies in rank, as he is clearly approximating those high elite tiers in raw power, speed, and durability, going by the English dub of the Bardock Z special if you want to rule that as, being legit. However, Dragon Ball Minus does tell us that there were a few thousand Saiyans on planet Vegeta, plus however many were off-world. There are likely more than 10 mid-classes because there are several higher-ranking Saiyans seen in the Dragon Ball Super movie that were near the King's Castle. And in the anime, when King Vegeta goes to revolt against Frieza, it is said in a guidebook that he only got the very best to go with him, and there's at least 10 or 12 or so in, that fight. In terms of speed, the average Saiyans are clearly several times faster than light, given that much weaker.
Them boys shit the brick when they saw that nigga though, bro. Look at them boys, man. Them boys gotta go in the toilet, man. Hey, I understand. But you still gotta stand 10 toes, man. Stand 10 toes like your king, bro. You see, he ain't scared. Come on, man. Stand 10 toes, bro. Y'all die. But go out y'all way, bro. Go out standing.
Characters could either move before light could even hit them, or react to attacks that could vaporize the moon in, very short time.
I remember this little training arc they went through, bro. They was getting their ass beat. Them Saiyans was washing them niggas, bro. Oh, God.
Elites like King Vegeta, Dragon Ball Super Bardock, Turles, and Prince Vegeta would scale much higher, easily in the massively faster than light ranges, by several thousand times if not much more, given that even injured Goku in Ginyu's body could react to Ginyu's body changing light and move towards it so fast that it appeared frozen. I don't have to tell you this, but if you're moving so fast that even light itself seems still, if even for a moment, it is pretty monumental. These higher echelon Saiyans would also scale to an extent from Goku's feat of maneuvering and reacting while on top of his spaceship, which traveled galactical distances and potentially an infinite distance in about 6 days. King Vegeta and his elites are also capable of outspeeding the Regal Warrior's blast that vaporized 3 planets in a flash, so these guys are clearly insanely fast, especially while using the anime. This is a bit of a tangent, but I wanted to clear up some misconceptions people may have about trying to determine a planet's size going through some specific parameters to rank characters. For example, what it may appear to have in its orbit, what it orbits, or its moon cycle period. This will also be put into consideration for the Viltrumite side of things, so don't worry. But let's cover how large planet Vegeta has been inferred, presented, or calculated to be, with its destruction scaling towards 4 people, the grade up elites like Vegeta, Turles, and Bardock, and Baby Z Broly. So, planet Vegeta's moon cycle according to the anime is every 8 years, or about 2,900 days, which is over 100 times slower than our own moon cycle, which is
what the hell?
days or so.
What the hell?
At first glance, you might want to argue it means, hey, the planet is much larger than the Earth, given the length of its satellite's journey, ignoring the lines about its gravity being 10 times that of the Earth, of course. This is a fair assessment, and I did think this line of thought at first, but this could also just mean the moon is just extremely far away. There are also arguments that it might be a hyperplanet, one that dwarfs even Jupiter, given that 2 stars are seen in close proximity to it, which might make some people think that it means the suns orbit the planet directly. But being near a sun or several of them doesn't necessarily mean it's a larger planet. It could also just mean that the orbit is much faster because going by Kepler's third law, the higher a planet's mass or gravity is, the shorter or the faster the orbital period for a satellite would be if it's at a fixed distance. So a longer orbital period does not inherently correlate to a planet's size, and neither does its proximity to other celestial bodies, but it can give us some details about it. In other words, if a satellite, or the moon, is further away from its central body, then the longer or slower its orbital period would be. And yeah, obviously we can't really limit fictional characters, and elements based on real-life science and its properties, but I wanted to explain how it could be measured and what it could mean for the planet's nature. However, it is fair to mention that the Daizenshu does state that planet Vegeta has 2 suns. Whether this means it directly has these orbiting it, or
Tatooine.
if it has 2 in its general proximity is unclear, but either way, this planet is pretty big and does not really abide by real-life laws, obviously. Either way, even if you downplay Planet
Yeet.
Vegeta's size, which I would agree is a large planet anyways, Baby Broly creating a barrier twice as strong as Frieza's blast that casually vaporized it would yield Star Plus to large star levels easily. Baby Broly might even surpass the Uzaru elites anyways because he was likely enraged when he performed that feat, not to mention he can amplify himself by 10 times more with his own Uzaru state as well. But now that we have covered the Saiyans, you might think that the
Oh my
Viltrumites
god,
have
this
no chance
this
in hell.
ignorant this
And as I
ignorant
said,
shit.
it will depend
Oh.
on what material, iterations, and arguments we use, so bear with me. For now, we will cover the Viltrumite Empire before the 500-year time skip at the end of the series with a population of 50 full-bloods and however many hybrids were left. But then we will cover the Empire at its prime before the virus and wars hit, and its likely even better prime at the end of the series. For starters, people like to bring up the destruction of the planet Viltrum as a supposed ultimate feat in the series. And
Yep.
I've seen numerous
Every
global
single
and
time.
hyperwank relating to it, so I'll break down which tier.
Can't wait to see it though, animated. I cannot wait to see that
is
shit.
Actually crazier than people give it credit for. Especially because it would narratively have to surpass much earlier feats or statements that are rivaling, if not vastly outscaling, the tier that people commonly place this feat at. Well, remember that nuke feat that we saw in Season 3? Well, I realized that I was actually looking at the feat all wrong when I first mentioned it in my invincible power scaling video all those years ago. Yep, a solar flare can release multi-continental wiping levels of power, but then I later realized that the nuke isn't as strong as the solar flare itself. It is actually far stronger, because the nuke is potent enough to create a solar flare, which, to tell you, you need more than multi-continental levels to do, so... But there are two ways that this can be achieved, but two of them are very good measures for how crazy this feat really is, and it's clearly way above multi-continental. So, to invite a solar flare to occur, one way would be to disrupt the star's binding energy to some extent, and that is no easy task.
Nigga,
The
they
binding
shot that
energy
shit,
is
bro.
essentially the energy level that must be reached to separate a celestial body, like a planet or a star, from a gravitationally bound or concrete state. So we can take the sun's binding energy and downplay it by a million, a billion, or even a trillion times, and it would still yield energy levels far superior to multi-continental ranges. So this feat might actually be within the moon to large planet levels if it can affect it to a level surpassing that of other previously recorded flares. Which is pretty wild to think about considering that we have detected solar flares with hundreds to millions of times the potency of the biggest flares within other similarly sized stars as our own, which even while
My
downplayed,
brain,
would still
my
yield
brain.
plus ranges of power. To further back up that this nuke might actually yield like large planetary levels of power is due to solar flares potentially being caused by interactions with gas giants due to their magnetic fields becoming entangled. So you'd either need the magnetism levels or energy ranges of an object much substantially larger than the Earth, like a gas giant, or affect the energy holding the sun together in some capacity to induce a solar flare. And once again, even if it was multi-continental level, that would not induce a solar flare. So, no, the nuke does not scale to that. It is way superior. There's also stuff like Preamp Tech Jacket, who was inferior to most Viltrumites, being able to throw a ship into a star so far in from so far away,
Nigga,
to the
who is
point it
this?
exploded, or Cannon Invincible, pushing a moon to crush an adversary alongside the tick, which can be calculated within the planetary plus to large planet levels. And yes, this crossover is canon because they reference events like the Invincible War and the Conquest fight, and Mark even has his higher in the comic. Here's another mini tangent, but it is important for scaling the Viltrumites. Do you guys remember that the planet Viltrum has rings composed of hundreds of thousands, if not even millions of corpses? Well, people have tried to use this to rank
That's
the
messed
size
up.
of the planet for being super large or dense, which could be true, but not for this exact reason alone. Now, what I mean by this is that a planet having rings does not inherently mean it's a larger object.
They be your own people, man.
Bodies far, far smaller than the Earth that have rings, such as Chariklo, and the Earth is even theorized to have had rings at one point in its past. However, I do think it's fair to assume that the planet Viltrum is larger than our planet, considering that it is stated in the official handbook as having 1.25 times the gravity of Earth, and it is somewhat apparent that gas giants, i.e. planets much larger than our own, have rings. People also tend to misquote or substantially miss key details in its destruction. Yeah, Theta's dits imply that his team could die on impact if they, hit the stabilized core, but the key word here is could. Now, remember Space Racer's gun? Yeah, that's stated in the comic and showcased in the show as being able to blast and wipe out stars.
Yep.
Literally to the point it vaporized.
Skadoosh.
This is important
That shit
because
crazy.
it took the combined efforts of Mark, Thetis, Omni-Man, and his blast to not only destroy, but crumble the planet so violently it dispersed the ring as well. And yeah, the group were knocked out.
It took the blast too. I didn't know
They
that.
were relatively unscathed, and keep in mind that they were battling right before that. Even if you wanted to argue that Space Racer's attack hard carried the feat, the other three still contributed to it, and this would still likely yield large planet ranges and possibly reach into the star to large.
I never knew the gun was part of the shit. I never knew that.
How big you think the planet is and how large you think the stars that Space Racer destroyed were. There's also stuff like Universe's Staff of Leadership, which also proves planetary ranges of power for standard Viltrumites, given that it can absorb enough energy to allow her to not only return home to her faraway planet, likely many galaxies away, but also sustain her entire world for some time, despite it being 8 times larger than the Earth. And Mark would obviously scale to this somewhat, to his potency, because he got shocked by the staff and even withstood its blast several times without any grave injury. Although he did say that they hurt him, and yeah, he even got knocked out at one point, but either way, this character is very much like a Galactus type of character that can drain planets and wipe them out dry, right? And even then, Mark was still like chilling, he wasn't like gravely injured or anything. There's also Priam Tech Jacket, who could contend with 2 invincible variants, and even Noel, a bounty hunter, could one-shot planet eaters pretty easily, and these guys are still...
I'm gonna watch season 3 again, I ain't gonna lie.
Just inherently. Now, remember those nukes with the potency to cause solar flares? Yeah, well, Brit, who we saw in Season 3, was able to withstand being pummeled by a guy for several days who could absorb nukes. Sure, it wouldn't be fair to say that these nukes, this guy absorbed were as powerful as the ones the Mahler twins launched, but it would be fair to say that these are clearly much more potent than anything in our real-world arsenal. And Brit is hella cracked, and I'll likely do a video on him down the line, but although he's not quite as strong as a Viltrumite, he is pretty high up there in terms of the pecking order amongst the humans, and he deserves to lead the Guardians of the Globe over that old fraud immortal. Which
fraud too. That nigga's a fraud.
Or above, given that they'd be stronger than Oliver before he trained with Omni-Man and got a growth spurt. But he was even able to shock Thoth, who was used to so casually fighting over planets it could even release his power in waves, to the point that he turned him into lifeless husks. So if a guy who can life fight planets and sees them as nothing but playthings doubted himself against Brit's latent aura and invulnerability, and that dude is still somewhat below an average Viltrumite,
I cannot wait for season 4.
It really makes you think about how strong these mofos really are. And of course, there's also Omnipotus, who even while starving, had defeated nearly all of the heroes on Earth, and did so once more after he reached his seemingly satiated levels. In the handbook, it stated that straight up, through a chain reaction, he was able to destroy a solar system, and it's even mentioned that he could reshape worlds, and that he absorbed energy from his universe to the point it was dead. So
okay.
Some upscaling you can do from this dude, since anyone that scales through Dinosaurus and post-Conquest fight Mark, like the elite Viltrumites and elite hybrid Viltrumites, would scale from Omnipotus's best beats.
Because Conquest is the second strongest Viltrumite. They say that. They say he the second strongest. I never knew that. That's saying something.
I'd say his tier is certainly more vague, but if he scales to Viltrumites who are revered for being the most legendary warriors in space according to Battle Beast, that can likely withstand a blast from the coalition of planets' weaponry, which can destroy solar disk large and efficient enough to the point that can freeze a planet, then I'd say he's a pretty huge threat. But there are literally dozens of elite Viltrumite soldiers that scale to or above that. The average Viltrumite or most invincible variants wouldn't quite be at this uppermost level, clearly, but there is some downscaling you can do at least. We also saw an emotionally conflicted, depressed Omni-Man casually resist the pull of a black hole, and even reach its photon sphere, and was seemingly even approaching its event horizon at one point. It's not clear how much mass and quantum pressure he is resisting, but to put it into some perspective as to why this feat has to be above baseline planetary, is that even as heavy as our Earth is, it can be contained within a black hole with about a 9mm Schwarzschild radius. Considering how immense this black hole is, it's fair to assume that Omni-Man is dealing with large planetary to potentially stellar ranges of mass. This may not scale to attack potency and durability directly, but the point is that there
You're like, man, fuck it, man. I'm sending it all, man.
Well above baseline planetary
I'm tired of
levels,
this shit.
So saying that the average Viltrumite is multi-continental to moon level is just straight up disingenuous. Now, of course, let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, Mark and Thrax's flesh was peeling off while fighting near and inside the sun for quite a while, but this doesn't necessarily mean they are below star level in terms of attack potency and durability. So picture
oh my god, that anime is gonna be crazy.
Will remain at the same durability, more or less, under normal conditions and its expected time frame, right? However, that threshold for how long it remains durable will
Don't say that, bro. You can't say shit like that. No, bro, you can't say shit like This door cannot be hurt by anything from One Piece. You can't say that, bro. You can't say that. The One Piece head is gonna get on your ass, bro.
However, that threshold for how long it remains durable will vastly decrease if it's, oh, I don't know, put under immensely low and high temperatures or stress. Same thing in Dragon Ball, right? We've seen Goku being wary of insane temperatures in Z and Super, yet he can logically dish out or withstand planetary attacks and...
Yeah, this is ignorant, because literally in Broly, he's literally fighting in the shit against the nigga, bro. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Of much higher echelons at this point. The concept at play here would be that the Viltrumites can exert planetary to star levels of attack potency and durability, while their smart atoms are under normal conditions. But they can't exert those levels for long if they are under heavy external conditions and push past their limits. Speaking of smart atoms, these allow a Viltrumite to survive in extreme conditions for extended periods of time. And of course, everything has a breaking point. But this adaptation does allow them to basically absorb energy from their environment, somewhat akin to the Quincy's and how they can absorb reishi from their surroundings and bleach.
Tough.
They can also extract far more effectiveness from the oxygen or other resources they absorb, because with a single gasp of air, a Viltrumite can survive for up to 2 weeks out in space, and they can even go 2 weeks without eating. They can also straight up fight and survive for extended periods of time, likely hours.
Goku would never though. 2 weeks without eating? That nigga. That nigga might actually turn to a villain. For real.
Maybe even days without oxygen, like we saw with Oliver following the first Viltrumite War. These warriors, even in small squads, can conquer planets in mere minutes, which is very impressive considering some of these civilizations have weaponry that can damage or kill Viltrumites or Ragnar, who scale above most Viltrumites.
Yep.
So not only can the average Viltrumite do their job much faster than the average Saiyan, but they can also keep the pressure up far longer, are likely more skilled, have substantially better survivability, and have more experience. The elite Viltrumites are even more impressive, and the legendary anomaly like Thrag could fight for several days while heavily injured, and his guts spilling out.
Oh my god.
Clearly much faster than the Saiyans as well.
Yeah.
Even a distressed Omni-Man who took breaks and wasn't flying at full speed was able to cross galaxies in like 1 week to maybe a couple of weeks, depending on what time frame within the comics or the show, which can be calculated well into the billions of times the speed of light.
That nigga was...
Most Viltrumites wouldn't be quite as fast as Nolan, Anissa, Thrag, or Mark, for example, but they should at least be...
When he did this shit, bro, this shit is crazy to me, bro. Like, why these motherfuckers can't write Goku and Vegeta, or, you know what I'm saying, somebody, a villain doing some shit like this, bro? It was going crazy. Matter of fact, they could have did this shit with Majin Buu, or even Cell. You know what I'm saying? This had one of them niggas just doing this. This casual niggas and just wiping out niggas. Cause we know they can do it. We know they can. It's just that the writers are just
within the high hundreds of millions to low billions of times the speed of light,
Anissa.
at least. You could even argue that they have some level of infinite speed if you take the statement regarding the universe's vastness and tech jacket as literal. So if Omni-Man traversed through some section of infinite galaxies in finite time, then that would clearly make him have that range of speed, which would match up with the highballs for Dragon Ball Z and Dynamic Saga at least. I'd honestly say that Planet Plus to Large Planetary is the most coherent and logical ranges for the average Viltrumite, primarily going by the comics. But star to large star levels are possible with the higher end interpretations, which is superior to the higher ends you can give to an average base Saiyan. The average Viltrumite is also rivaling, if not massively surpassing, the elite Saiyans in speed, let alone how fast the higher tiers are.
That nigga is alive, bro. The rematch got to be crazy.
Get over time, and just how many more elites they have within their ranks than the Saiyans, which could easily number in the dozens even during their lowest point. Not only does early Mark end up fighting 2 of his variants at once, and even weaker characters like Preamp Tech Jacket could as well, but Mark eventually contends with the post-Battle Beast fight Thrag, who before his near-death power boost, was already strong enough to the point that it took 4 elite Viltrumites, Anissa, Lucan, Craig, and Thula, to put him down a notch. This is consistent because we saw Battle Beast fight 5 Viltrumites, and Alan fight 5 elite hybrids, who could give Mark some difficulty by themselves. Post-evamp Invincible may not scale as high as Thrag or 2nd Zenkai Alan the Alien, but he's clearly approaching that tier of power, so it's fair to say that he could potentially fight 2 to 4 elite hybrids at once, with each of them being comparable to General Krieg and Omni-Man, who was so strong that he had to be hunted down by 3 Viltrumites before the time skip. These elite hybrids would also be above Season 3 Mark, who could fight 2 variants without being rage boosted or being pushed to his limits. And this is pretty crazy considering some of these variants were able to kill adult Viltrumites.
Yep.
There's also the fact that Mark and Dinosaurus face off against multitudes of Reanimen, including Reanimen and Invincible variants, who not only take the strength of their Viltrumite host, but unleash pure rage and are cybernetically enhanced on top of that. We are given a multiplier for them as well, as is revealed in the handbook that even the earliest models that had no GDA funding and technology had 10 times the endurance and reaction times of whomever's body was used to make them. We even see time-skip super robot drones being able to take care of several of these as well, and to further prove it does kill the Viltrumites, Brit is even used as a weapon at one point to wipe out numerous of these same drones that can fight these variants. So it's fair to say that Mark might have actually been fighting beings that have 10 times the stamina and reflexes of a normal Viltrumite, and they might be even stronger considering that even the early Reanimen can lift or press at least 20 tons, which is over 6 times above the utmost weight a peak athletic human can bear, which is about 2.67 US tons. It's hard to say how much of a raw power boost these reanimated soldiers receive, but it's fair to say that it's between 2 to 10 times if we use those other previously mentioned figures as a metric. This range would also account for however much of a boost you think the upgraded or time-skip Reanimen obtained from what we saw in seasons 1 through 3. There's also post-amp Tech Jacket, who receives a 10-time boost straight up, and likely receives more upgrades within the 500-year time skip, yet even so, he was defeated by Mark's forces. So when you incorporate everything, it's fair to say that Emperor Mark, at the end of the series, becomes tens of times stronger than an average
Emperor Mark, man, that shit hard.
He scale to or surpasses Battle Beast and Thrag, but he also manages to defeat Timeskip Alan, who, as I mentioned, could fight 5 elite hybrids, and potentially more in the Second Viltrumite War. If each of these hybrids are
your big ass
3 normal Viltrumites or weaker Invincible,
I know that's not Battle Beast. That gotta be one of his species or some shit, bro. That can't be my nigga Battle Beast on that nigga Thrag like that, bro.
Variants, then Mark would be 10 to 15 times stronger than a standard Viltrumite just off of that. Krieg, Conquest, and Omni-Man would also scale around those ranges. So the strongest Viltrumites are several to tens of times above large planet to star levels, which should put them on comparable footing to most of the elite base Saiyans. However, the Great Ape Saiyans, particularly the elites, would definitely be way too much for them one-on-one. Although you could maybe wank the time-skip Viltrumites if you believe that Amp Tac Jacket received boost rivaling or traversing beyond the Colossus' armor power set, which could combat Galaxy and Universal level threats, which is pretty vague I suppose. Well, we do have those other statements from Omnipotus, which may not make it as far-fetched. Either way, I wouldn't go with this higher route of scaling, but I thought it was
big ass linebacker coming through.
Everything, who would win in the encounter in each scenario? Well, one thing is for sure, the average Viltrumite and some adequate hybrid trainees are at least comparable to an average base Saiyan in attack potency and durability, but they are far, far faster.
It's gonna be a slaughter on both sides. I feel like it's gonna be, and niggas about to die. It's gonna be crazy. I will see that. I will pay to make that happen.
And endurance or capacity to fight while gravely injured. Alongside more combat experience, they also have much better senses like eyesight, due to them being able to see from very long distances and through invisibility technology. Their average Saiyan, while they possess flight and are capable of firing deadly ki blast, the vast majority of them cannot sense someone's ki, and they have a weakness which through repeated encounters the Viltrumites will learn about, that being that grabbing their tails would hinder them in combat.
True.
The Viltrumites can also fly with less strain and have more potent durability even while off guard, given that Saiyans need to keep their ki levels up to withstand strong attacks. Otherwise they can get grazed by simple things such as rocks or bullets, given like what we've seen from Goku. So if we take the original Dragon Ball Z canon Saiyan Empire at its prime, against the Viltrum Empire's prime at the end of the Second Viltrumite War, which is 5 to 6 years after the First Viltrumite War, then where does that leave us? Their full-blooded population was less than 50 before the final conflict, and they had at least a few dozen elite hybrids to hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of hybrid trainees, because Thrag got really busy. Compared to the
That
Saiyans, the
nigga was
Viltrumites
fucking.
have much superior numbers, and
Nigga,
they
that was
likely
all.
have more mid
That was all your kids, nigga. You was fucking. Your ass still alive? I thought your guts was spilled out. What the fuck?
and higher tier soldiers than the Saiyans do, because they have Thrag, Mark, Omni-Man, Conquest, Anissa, Lucan, General Krieg, and Thula, and the other remaining ones of the point.
Thula still alive too? That's the bitch with the braid. The shit in the back of her thing. Wait. No, she can't be alive. That nigga Iron Man kill her? Nolan killed her.
0.1% are between low and mid-class elites, because I'd argue that most of the survivors are among the best of the best,
Oh, he just saying. I'm tripping. Never mind.
like the two that were sent out to execute Nolan. There's also Ursel and Onan, Thrag's only elite hybrid children that were born as twins, who are comparable to post-Eve Amp Mark and General Krieg, while the other elite hybrids should fall within a similar tier.
Yeah. I fuck you nigga. So you fucked these bugs. You fucked multiple bugs. You was a nasty, dirty, disgusting nigga. And look at her, she got a thong on. See, I get aliens. I get you want to fuck an alien. I get that. You know what I'm saying? Look at my baby girl Starfire. Bad bitch. You know, Tamaranians in general. Bad bitch. Hawk Girl. I forgot the name of her species, but bad bitches. You feel me? Twi'leks. Bad bitches. Night Sisters. Bad bitches. Like, there are some bad alien bitches out there. This is not one of them. Cause like, I was seeing all those purple fucking Viltrumites. I'm like, I didn't want to believe it, but somebody really was clapping these buggy cheeks.
Since even no-name ones could give the other elites and Mark a tough fight. However, the Saiyans,
It's
whether
nasty.
with canon or non-canon material, have much higher firepower and range, with Vegeta far surpassing even the highest stands for invincible characters, especially with his great ape state. So with their lower population numbers at the time, the Viltrumites would lose, but give the Saiyans mid to high difficulty because even if they have lots of great apes, the Viltrumites have more than enough resources to jump each of those with varying degrees of success. They actually have some slight chances of pulling off a win through some cheesy tactics, and due to their wider spaceship presence, star-busting weaponry, and pets like the Ragnar that rival the potency of their Saiyan elites and great apes. Most of the Viltrumite forces, like the trainees, would likely die in masses or get wounded by fighting like complete morons and rushing in to punch someone recklessly, but the smarter, veteran soldiers will likely not suffer the same fate against base Saiyans and punch around them more tactically since they do have superior speed and control.
Oh my god,
They can
that's
also play
crazy.
the long safe game and outlast or evade their energy attacks or resources, as most of their forces will likely run out of energy or get decimated before they can wipe out the majority of the Viltrumite's forces in return. But the high-tier Saiyans like Vegeta, Bardock, and King Vegeta would hard carry. The Viltrumites
Hard
may also
carry.
try to destroy the very planets the Saiyans were fighting on, which would put a lot of pressure on them considering that they can't really survive in space for more than a few minutes, if at all, depending on the iteration and if Bardock or Goku were fighting in outer space or if they were just in the exosphere. But then again, Vegeta states that Goku cannot survive in space, and Frieza even mentions this
I hate this writing crutch so much. I feel like as soon as these two niggas got this shit, that should have been obsolete. As soon as these niggas became gods, that should have been obsolete. That should have been thrown out the goddamn window. You know what I mean? On God.
to Goku
No pun intended.
fight in Z. And also, only the elites will realistically be able to react to that, planet destruction, but it would take their utmost effort to do so. But even with those things in play, it would still be a difficult battle for both sides. The Viltrumites would likely need several high tiers to take care of just one of the Saiyans' high tiers, or their great apes. And although there are less high tiers for the Saiyans, they have a greater quality of warriors. However, the elites would likely be forced to use their great ape states eventually, and if the remaining forces remain in base, considering only a few could transform at will like Vegeta, then they would likely lose a lot of their numbers quicker than the Viltrumites would lose ranks. Even if the Viltrumites managed to wipe out even King Vegeta and the other elites, Prince Vegeta would surely clean up and vaporize all of them with a flurry of energy blast or a mighty Gallic gun, since all of them would be likely too exhausted to really dodge it. At that point, he would be cementing himself as a true apex and ruler of all Saiyans, giving the Pilled Warriors a well-deserved win. Now, if we're using the peak of the Viltrumite Empire before the Purge and the virus hit the population, the Viltrumites would win with high difficulty because they would still have Thrag, Conquest, and Anissa, and far, far superior numbers than at the end of the Second Viltrumite War. Within the 500-year time skip, the Viltrumite Empire not only reached a higher prime than ever before in terms of technology and influence, but their population would have eventually grown even stronger, considering that the descendants of the elites would be very powerful. In which case, they would win with mid to high difficulty and usurp the Saiyans.
Okay, they got the little color thing, like Mark color thing. His theme, I like that. That's hard.
Also, when it comes to the 50 average base Saiyans versus 50 average Viltrumites debate, the Viltrumites take that win as well, giving them 3 wins unless you want to bring in the Great Apes, but at that point, you would be conceding that the base Saiyans cannot win. No?
Yeah.
Okay, so what if we're using non-canon and or post-Z material and bring in Turles, Dragon Ball Super Bardock, and Young Z Broly?
That's
then
GG.
Give the Saiyans more potent firepower than even Prince Vegeta, and honestly, depending on how raged out Broly is, you can probably just
this nigga alone. Goodbye. That nigga alone.
Solo all of them.
Yeah.
But he massively slaps all of them easily if he becomes a Great Ape in the war as the army's secret weapon. So yeah, even with their massive numbers, weapons, technology, and other advantages that the Viltrumites have, and at their highest ends, it still doesn't quite match these other dimensional Saiyans. The firepower is just way too much, and so the Saiyans would win with low to mid difficulty at best in these scenarios, whether it's against a past prime or the future prime of the Viltrumite Empire, giving the Saiyans 2 more wins, tying them up in the end. So there you have it. Depending on the parameters, time period, and scaling meta, the matchup between the Viltrumites and the Saiyans is not as one-sided as it might seem at first. It is
facts. I know it was gonna be one-sided, to be honest with you. I wonder how many seasons we're gonna get until we get to this shit. Low key.
Clearly quite competitive, with both sides each having 3 wins. But what do you think? Were you convinced that your take was the right way to go before watching this? Or did this change your opinion, or did you learn something new about either franchise? Or were you surprised that this debate was closer than it seemed at first? I sure do hope so. Thanks.
Hey, I still got respect for my Viltrumites, you know what I'm saying? I fuck with them. I fuck with Viltrumites heavy. I ain't gonna cap. Them niggas ignorant, bro. Anissa came Anissa came in, beat the dog shot of Mark. Conquest came in, beat the dog shot of that nigga. His own Faja beat that nigga. Like, I respect them niggas. They warriors. You know what I mean? I like me some warriors. On God. I just felt like low key, if both sides were to train even more, they'll be more deadly. Like if the Saiyans, if these niggas was just to train a smidgen like more often, bro. You know what I mean? Because even like the regular, the low class warriors could have been up there too. If everybody was just locked in, if King Vegeta would have been like, "Hey y'all, man, fuck this nigga Frieza, bro. Everybody, we gonna start training on the cool. Everybody start training on God, on the low. You feel me? Go off world somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Start training, dead ass. Cause being on serious nigga forever. Fuck that. You know what I mean? Shit would have been different. They never really trained, bro. Them nigga was comfortable, bro. Like we seen Vegeta train as a kid, and that was just that nigga though. You know, but it's the same thing with like Mark. If I was Mark, nigga, I would stay training. Like in the beginning of season 3, that little training arc he had, nigga, I would never would have stopped. Oh God, you got your ass beat not once but twice by your dad and that girl, baby girl Nissa, man. Stay training, bro. Word of the day, bro. Stay training. Oh God. Anyway, thank y'all for watching, man. Hit the video like, man. Comment down below and subscribe. Let me know who y'all thought was gonna win, and if y'all was right or wrong. If y'all like me, I thought it was gonna be close on either side. Whoever would have won, I thought it was gonna be close on either side. I was low-key leaning towards the Saiyans a little bit, but low-key I was also like the Viltrumites, because the Viltrumites are like way more, got some more shit than base Saiyans, average Saiyans. So yeah. Shout out to Chuck, man, one of the OGs, man, that comes to this power scale and shit. I might check out another video, low-key. Cause they be doing a thing. I wish they would do more One Piece. I ain't gonna lie, more One Piece scaling. But that door shit, that was disrespectful. No cap. You can't say shit like that. Them niggas gonna get mad. If I go in the comments right now, they might be mad. But yeah. Anyway, love y'all, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.